No. I have my packet and agenda and everything here, just so you know.
Good.
And have
I don't know if you saw them. Janine just sent out a bunch of copies, a bunch of sections of the first go-round on the master plan.
She'd actually sent them to me earlier, and I've reviewed 3 of the sections so far.
How do you rate?
Well, he's on the committee.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Sorry. Okay. I haven't reviewed any of them. I just got them. All right. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission for February 11th, 2014. Before getting into the agenda, I would like to announce that today David Gray submitted his resignation from the commission, and I will read the letter. It's dated February 11th, 2014, resignation from the Airport Commission. All, I regret to inform you of my resignation from Nantucket Airport Commission effective February 11, 2014. Due to a recent promotion and increased workload, I feel I cannot give 100% effort towards the commission. Also, in light of the recent newspaper articles, I feel that I have not done enough to move our financial problems ahead and feel that some else may be able to do more. I have truly learned a lot working with so many talented people and will miss the comradeship I have experienced. I had the great experience of working with Bill McGrath during his tenure as interim airport manager and to go through the hiring process to hire our current airport manager, Tom Rafter. Tom has been an incredible asset to our airport, and I want his efforts to be commended as he was thrown into a huge nightmare and has diligently tried to push ahead. I would also like to acknowledge the rest of an incredible staff at the airport that so many don't realize without them the airport would come to a sudden stop. A truly incredible administration, finance, FBO, operations, maintenance, and janitorial staff that never get the acknowledgement needed. I want to thank you for having me on the board, and I want to thank the Board of Selectmen for allowing me to serve the community. Maybe someday in the future I'll try to serve again. Sincerely, David C. Gray, Senior Chief Operator, Surfside Wastewater Treatment Facility. Erica Mooney has responded that his resignation will be put on the agenda of the Board of Selectmen for acceptance next week on the 19th, and presumably they will begin the process of although I don't know this, so at some point begin the process of seeking candidates for a successor. If they asked me my opinion, I would suggest that we go ahead, but I'm not going to. That's my personal opinion. I believe Mr. Gray, Arthur, is your term up in June?
It is.
Yeah, and David's is as well, I believe.
Yes.
So that term will have to be filled, and we'll go from there. Because Mr. Gasparo is participating remotely, we will have to take a roll call on all votes, and we will move into the agenda. The first item of which is reviewing and approving the agenda. Mr. Gasparo, you have the agenda in the packet with you, I gather?
I do indeed.
Do I hear any objection from Mr. Gasparo or Ms. Planzer on the agenda?
No.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Bad day. The minutes of January 14th, 2014 are before you. Are there any additions or corrections?
None from me.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second, Mr. Gasparo?
Will second the motion.
Thank you. All those in favor, Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Gasparo?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The minutes of January 28th, 2014, which have been sent to you and are in the supplemental packet. Any additions or corrections? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Planzer. Mr. Gasparo, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor, Mr. Gasparo?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We need to ratify the warrant of February 5th, 2014. Is that the one? That's not the one in front of us now. That's the last one.
2-5.
2-5, right. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second, Mr. Gasparo? Thank you. All those in favor, Mr. Gasparo?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Is there public comment at this time? Hearing none, the pending leases and contracts as set forth in Exhibit 1.
We have one pending lease before you. It is the lease with Emily Air LLC. If you recall, the commission agreed in concept to the transfer of the hangar from Ocean Wings to Emily Air LLC. Unfortunately, we were waiting for Mr. Cunningham's response, but we had some issues with him being able to read some of the transmissions, and we have not heard back from him yet. However, I do understand he was attempting to close on this hangar on the 14th. So I don't know if the commission's desire is to approve it in concept. The changes that have been made to the agreement are to the base document, our standard lease agreement, if you will, and that's from town council.
So the changes were from our side, not from his side.
Yes, so if the commission desires, you, I guess, could approve the agreement as is, subject to the, if there's no changes or no significant changes made, or we can postpone it.
Can you hear that all right, Mr. Gasparo?
I can, and I did review the document and just had a brief comment whenever appropriate.
All right. Excuse me just a second. Tom, why don't you move down here, so if you wouldn't mind, so that you can hear better. Maybe grab that mic. Thank you. What's your comment, Mr. Gasparo?
One, that I'm supportive of Attorney Holland's revisions. I think that they're, good for both parties. And then one small thing, paragraph 2.1, he had suggested that the plan should be prepared by an engineer, and I just might suggest that we might put a licensed surveyor on there. Nothing to hold it up, but I just thought I would mention it, having reviewed the document, which was very thorough.
In 2.1? 2.1
Yeah.
is premises.
2.1 is the premises provision.
Okay, it says, a formal plan stamped by a professional engineer.
Oh, this is in the revision. I'm sorry. I don't have the revision. Or do I?
My suggestion that I believe that it would be more proper to have it from a surveyor. Oh, you could put engineer surveyor, but anyway, just.
So either or would you prefer just a surveyor?
Surveyor, because that's who's really going to do a plan like that.
Well, yeah, but I think to avoid any, even though there
Exactly.
is no plan, I would do both.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't want to sidetrack anything.
All right.
With that, I would be happy to go along with Tom's suggestion, to approve in principle.
Well, let's see if you make a motion, see whether there's a second. Do you?
Is there a significance to the red
Hold on
corrections or
just
the
a
blue
second.
corrections?
Hold on just a
I
second.
don't know.
Hold on just one second. Do you make that motion, Mr. Gasparo?
Yes, my
To-
motion would be to approve the pending lease with Emily Air, subject to final acceptance by Tom Cunningham.
Is there a second, at least for purposes of discussion?
I'll second that.
Ms. Planzer seconds. All right, Ms. Planzer, go ahead.
I just wonder if there's significance to the blue corrections versus the red corrections.
I believe they were just done at different times, because we had sat with Rick and reviewed this document. There was a review done because it's the same base document that G.J. Smith had, and then there were some other subsequent changes that were made. I believe that's what the difference is.
Oh, okay.
I would be more, since I haven't had a chance to review these changes, I would be more comfortable if we were to approve the lease in principle, subject to final review both by Mr. Cunningham and by us. So if it needed for his closing, he would have that.
Have what you need, okay.
Does that make sense? What do you think, Janine?
Should work for him, I guess.
Yeah.
I think he was hoping to.
I would
close
amend the
by end of
motion
this
if
week,
needed.
So as long as you could review it by the end of this week.
Well, we can't vote on it, though, by the end of this week. All right, let's let it go then, and we'll assume that since our council made all the recommendations that we're pretty much in accord with them. I will acquiesce on that basis. How do you vote on the motion, Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Gasparo? How do you?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. All right, we'll come back to the others when we get to the project updates. Pending matters?
On the town MOU, I haven't made any formal progress on writing the document, but we have met with Heidi, the new procurement officer, who is working closely with Silvio, the town engineer, who is also a procurement officer, and Janine is in the process of she's passed all her tests. It's just a matter of getting her certification as a procurement officer. They've been working together, and Heidi will be developing a town-wide procurement policy, which will have, I believe, an improved process, including the finance department approval in it. And so we're working in conjunction. Once she has her town-wide procedure written, we're going to dovetail up into that, our procurement process. So I think it's working out very well. They're working as a team, and collectively we've worked on a number of different RFPs and RFQs. So I think we've got a good group, and that's where that's going to be heading.
So would that do away with the MOU completely? Would that supersede it, or?
What I would propose is a new MOU that would just reference this new procedure. And again, it would be consistent with whatever the town's going to be coming up with, so that we're following in line with what their process is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be a shortened MOU referencing a
Would it be in
detailed
place
procedure.
of the prior one, or?
I believe it would, yes,
Yes.
because I think there would be
I mean,
significant
I think that was your question, wasn't it?
improvements and.
Right, it doesn't seem like we need an MOU if you have a new process that everybody's agreed to.
Well, and I
Because the
think-
MOU's kind of,
What we should do is, in the revised or updated MOU, we should recognize the progress that has been made as well. So we'll mention that, and then we'll go into the new and start fresh from there.
There are also certain things in the old MOU that never happened, such as the town hiring an additional person in the procurement office. That they
right,
were- that
for
they
the
committed-
airport or,
Well, for the airport and whatever, but they committed to that, and they haven't done it. And so I think it's better to wipe it clean
and so we can't just get rid of the old with the new process? I mean, what makes us
I think
keep
having,
that?
given my personal opinion is, given the spotlight that was on the airport's procurement process, including attention from other parties in the
Legal
legal state
Area.
world, that it's best at this point not to try to upset the apple cart too much, but rather have in place an agreement between the town and the airport which supersedes what was agreed to back 2 years ago, but is the working document under which we're operating.
I think, Dan, if I may, too, this may be a good procedure, or a method, rather, to adopt a procedure that involves town departments and the airport. So whether it be for procurement, for other financial procedures, or other things where we're relying on other town departments to, agree to a procedure, we both agree to parts of it, the MOU covers an agreement that says, okay, we'll both act accordingly, or,
Okay,
follow
specific.
certain procedures.
To us.
Well, it may also, the town may want it to include the other enterprise funds, for example, too, which would make sense. So it's not just picking on the airport.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of formalizing the relationship between the airport and town as to who's going to do what within a procedure.
As it now exists, rather than as it was thought might exist but doesn't.
Yes.
That was clear.
So anyway,
You'll have your turn at public comment, Ms. Dunton, if you wish to address the question. It just meant there was supposed to be a process that was never put in place.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so that's still to come, and it's not going to be right away.
No, but it is a work in progress process. I just wanted to let you know we are moving along with it.
Okay. Do you have any comments, Mr. Gasparo, on that?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Finance?
Finance.
Where are you starting?
Well, I'm going to try to
You really
start
want to
with-
confuse Ms. Dunton.
We have been contacted by, or we've been in touch with the FAA with regard to our passenger facility charge application. And the initial feedback from the FAA has been that we will not be able to use the non-hub expedited review process, which is a 30-day turnaround response from FAA. Rather, we must go through the full application process, which gives them up to 4 months to review and approve the document. If, in fact, they were to use the entire 4 months, that could take us beyond town meeting. So therefore, we needed to develop a contingency for our budget, because in our budget, we have $600,000 in revenue for the passenger facility charge. However, I've been in touch with the FAA representative, and she's indicated that she will work to expedite it and would hope to have a response back to us prior to town meeting, but not until probably late March, early April, which is beyond the time when we have, when the warrant has to go to print. So the contingency plan that we came up with, and we had a meeting last Friday with the chairman, with the FinCon chairman, town manager, finance director, and finance department representatives, and came up with a contingency where we will remove the $600,000 in revenue from the budget. And to account for that, we will eliminate the profit, which I believe was about $239,000. And there was a $450,000 line item for additional fuel purchases or expenses beyond our fuel revolver. Last year, we did not use anything beyond the revolver. This year, we may use a little bit, but we felt comfortable removing the $450,000 at this point in time. And if, in fact, we need it, that means we're making more money, so we would go back for a request for that additional. So that's how we're making up the difference of the $600,000 revenue. We're offsetting that. Now, if, in fact, if the FAA...
Excuse me, if I could just clarify a point there. We're not eliminating the profit. The profit, the $450,000 is being reduced from the budget, and therefore, or another $150,000, which would otherwise go onto the bottom line, will be absorbed into the budget as well.
Right.
So the net is something less than the original profit projected.
Correct. And if the FAA does respond and approves the PFC application prior to town meeting, we can then go with a technical amendment to town meeting to reinstate the budget as it was originally approved. Does that clarify it?
It does, but I think it's important to add a couple of things. One of them is that if in fact the PFC is approved, but not until after town meeting, we did get the informal agreement of both the chair of the Finance Committee and the town manager that we would be able to go back at a special town meeting in the fall and revise the budget to reflect the coming of the PFC.
Yeah, to reinstate it back to where it originally was.
And the other issue that the town manager has been pushing for us and the other enterprise funds to come up with some questions for the DOR to clarify issues that relate to enterprise funds. And I think we pretty well resolved all our issues with respect to the revolver at this point, except for one. And that one is the question of whether we can have the majority of fuel purchases and sales in the airport operating budget and use the revolver as a backstop. Should fuel prices go up, demand go up, and we don't have enough authorization in the budget and enough room in the budget to purchase the additional fuel that's required. We have been told several times that if we have a revolver and and also provision in the operating budget, that we have to use the revolver first. So we would sort of lose the flexibility of using the revolver as a backstop in that case, if we had to use it first. However, the business manager for the airport, Ms. Christ, happened to run across in the files this past week a 2005, I believe it was, memo from the then finance director to the then airport manager, saying in no uncertain terms, but with no authority cited and no sort of further discussion as best we can determine, that a provision in the operating budget and a revolving fund were in essence mutually exclusive, and you could not have both. So we all determined at our meeting Friday it was worth raising this issue again with the DOR to see whether, in fact, we could use the revolver as a backstop. And one of the reasons, frankly, of doing this is to, I mean, ultimately it'll be up to the commission to decide, but we'd like to know what the parameters are within which a decision can be made. And one of the problems has been, as we all know, the struggle with how to report the revenue from the revolving fund in the airport budget. I think we may have dealt with that to some degree last week, but nonetheless, there is a lot of confusion about how the revolving fund works. And it's virtually impossible, in my view, given the fact that it's taken some of us 2 years to understand it, that this is something which the public can be, as a whole, can be comfortable with and know what they're voting on when we're asked to authorize it at town meeting. So from my perspective, I think it's much easier to explain if it's a backstop and not if they're constantly in juxtaposition to one another. But we'll see whether the DOR is willing to, has the authority and is willing to grant us that flexibility. Is that fair?
Yeah, we may just want to add that it's our understanding, too, that the revolver can be increased by approval from, I believe it's FinCom and Board of Selectmen, whereas in order to reduce it, it has to go to a town meeting. So that would give us that flexibility.
You can ponder that, Ms. Dutton. No, that's the point. I can't. No, it is what Mr. Rafter says is absolutely correct, and that's in the enabling legislation, that the cap in the revolver can be increased by the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen. However, you run into the situation where we ran into last year where we didn't spend up to the cap. The only reduction in the cap can be made, the only body that can reduce the cap is town meeting. Go figure. But that's where we are, and we will see where it leads.
Hopefully we can clarify that one.
I tried to clarify it
It's
in
a difficult issue.
In a two-page, I was trying to keep it to one, but it turned out to be almost two-page memorandum, which hopefully outlines the issue. Anything else on finance?
No, that's it.
How are fuel sales doing?
Fuel sales, I would have to ask.
All right, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that.
They were up.
master plan and sustainability program?
We have our consultant, Bill Richardson from Jacobs, with us tonight, who's going to give us a brief update on the master plan. There's a lot of activity and work going on, and a lot of documents being created and review and meetings and all types of things.
All kinds of fun stuff. Thank you, Tom. Bill Richardson, Jacobs Engineering. As Tom mentioned, we're deep into the master plan. It's proceeding on schedule. We've just distributed the draft copies of chapters 1 through 5. The commission will be getting them as well as the working group. The first chapter is basically public outreach. Second chapter is the airfield inventory, all the facilities and operations on the airport. Third chapter is environmental overview. Fourth is air service trends, which is very important for the working group to look at and understand. We've had a couple of very productive meetings leading up to issuing that draft chapter. And then the fifth chapter are the forecasts, and there are one of 3 scenarios, and it's basically the middle scenario that we're recommending that we go forward with. We're having a major meeting at the end of February with the working group, and we're looking forward to a good discussion with the working group, and we're looking forward to all of the working group members doing their homework and reading the 5 chapters that have been distributed to them, with the focus on chapters 4 and 5. That then will set us up to go into the next phase, which is basically to look at the alternatives, and that's where the fun begins. We're looking forward to that. We've got a lot of good ideas that are out there on the table that we hope to get into. We'll also be getting into the financial management piece, and then that'll wrap up and lead into the capital improvement plan, and then the final official document, which is the airport layout plan. So the FAA will take the airport layout plan and the forecasts. Those are the 2 pieces that the FAA approves, and the rest of it is the blueprint to move forward for the next 3 to 5 years in terms of the planning and development program, and prioritize those projects that are in the document. So basically, we're moving ahead, and we're looking forward to this next phase. It should be a good one.
And we have a very good working group, I would say, too.
Yes, very engaged, and I think that this next meeting is going to be very important to get the input back from the group. We're looking forward to a good, lively discussion on those issues, because it has significant implications for what the alternatives are that we're going to be looking at in this next phase.
Thank you.
So, thank you all. Yes, Dan.
Mr. Richardson, before you sit down, a couple of questions. Are these drafts being put up on the website, or are we waiting until after the working group?
You're correct. The working group, well, you're always right, Dan, but they will be put on the web after the working group has had a chance to review them, and the commission, and any comments. But right now they're in draft form. They will go on the web.
And, Dan, what one of our discussions was, and we want to follow this up, I think, in the next meeting with the advisory group, we didn't want to, as I said before, we don't want to overwhelm the public. We want it available, but kind of give a synopsis or a general summary, executive summary of each, so that if they want further information, they can go into that area. But we just don't want to, it's how we're going to present it on the website. We don't want to overwhelm everybody, we want them to have it so they can go and find the areas or topics that they may be interested in.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. My second question is, the working group meeting is the 25th, which is the date also of the next commission meeting, I believe.
Yes.
And I guess my question is, how would it be most helpful to get the input from the members of the commission who are not members of the working group? Would it be to have them post it, the working group, as a meeting as well, and have them come to the working group, and then you can summarize the whole thing a little bit at least that night?
Could. I think Mr. Gasparo is the commission's official member on the working group.
I don't know. Arthur, do you have an opinion on that?
Well, my only fear of having the whole commission as part of the working group is that it's already a pretty large group. And I found after the first meeting, with so many members, there's simply not enough time for everybody to really, get their thoughts out. And I'm wondering if since this isn't sort of the final meeting, you could either get
Well,
me any comments.
Actually, Arthur, I'm thinking now it's just Ms. Planzer and me, because Ms.
Okay,
Topham will
that's-
still be away.
Right, and you'd probably be there anyway.
And I'll probably, so I think we might as well just go ahead and post it
Fine.
and have the input, have us give our input as if we were members of the group, if you don't think that's a problem, Arthur.
No, not at all. That makes sense.
Okay, and then
That's fine.
you can hopefully give us a summary that evening of where you are.
Certainly.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
What time is that?
The 1:30 upstairs in this building.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Richardson. Mr. Flesher, do you have anything you wish to add? All right, thanks. Tom?
Under manager's report project updates, the FBO is progressing. We're hoping to have it, we're hoping to be in there and in a test operational mode by first or second week in March. We were hoping to be in there a little bit earlier, but unfortunately we had a number of snowstorms that our crews had to deal with. On the PFC, I gave you an update on that. Just a little more background, though. We did submit a draft application to FAA. It was close to 200 pages. And again, they've committed to turning that around in a fairly quick time frame. On the carbon neutral project, the ESCO proposals have been received. They're in the process of developing questions for interviews for the companies, and then they'll be setting up the interviews and proceeding with that selection process. On another more recent subject matter, the formerly used defense site, we had a consultant out last week to come out and evaluate the areas, and they're hoping to be out either later this week or next week. They have to get their laboratory and a bomb disposal technician to work together and get that established. So we're going to proceed with that the latest next week.
Excuse me, I'm going to suggest that we put FUDs as a separate item under the manager's report while that matter is pending, because I think it's something that everybody's interested in. I've gotten probably gotten as many comments about that as I have about anything from members of the public. So and that's not to say it's a lot, but I've had some. And so let's, if you would,
Okay.
Janine, put it in as maybe a new B.
All right. On the RFP, RFQ update, the control tower RFQ is at town for review, and we're hoping to have that advertised by next week. We haven't had a conference call with the FAA last week to go over the revised schedule and updated the schedule. So we're pushing to try to get that out as soon as possible. On the engineering RFP or RFQ status, Jacobs Engineering has been deemed the most advantageous for the airport, and we'd like to request the Commission's approval to begin negotiations of a contract with them. And if I may, if I can just roll that into the next one as well. Similar with fuel, we reviewed the proposals, and Ascent Aviation has been deemed most advantageous, and we'd like to ask permission to proceed with negotiations for an agreement with Ascent and Jacobs.
All right, I think we're not formally approving these contracts, so I think all I'm going to ask is the consent of the commission for Mr. Rafter to go ahead and negotiate the respective contracts with Jacobs and Ascent. Is there any objection? Ms. Planzer?
No
Mr.
objection.
Gasparo? No? And the chair agrees.
Okay, I would like to also thank Heidi, the procurement officer, and Silvio, who's the town engineer. They both participated and were very helpful in the process, too. We also have
I think we should also obviously express our thanks to, in each case, there were two bidders. And in the case of the fuel, it was Eastern. And, and there's always the possibility that if we can't come to an agreement with Ascent, we'd go to the other one, the same being true with Jacobs. But I think it's worth, formally thanking the other bidders in this process, particularly in the fuel side, because they had to go through it twice. And then we can insert the names, if you would, McFarland Johnson is the other engineering bid.
Correct.
And they are still working for us on the PFC, so again, with the consent of the commission, we offer our thanks to them for their participation in the process.
And both selections went through detailed review discussion. It was back and forth, so it wasn't an easy slam dunk, but I appreciate everybody's efforts because it does take quite a bit to prepare those proposals. We also have, we're in the process of preparing a RFP for our automated teller machines. We're also, again, as part of this overall procurement effort, considering teaming up with the town because they may be putting theirs out, but we may be slightly ahead of them in timing, so we're going to look into that.
Where does the town have ATMs?
I believe they're looking to have one in the town building, and I don't know.
I think there's one in visitor services, too.
Okay. But we're also looking to add one into the FBO, so. On the operations update, we, a group of us today with security, maintenance, David Sylvia, we took it and did a signage walkthrough from the FBO, outside, inside to the terminal, looking at some improvements and thoughts, ways we can improve the wayfinding. And so we're going to prepare a detailed plan. We don't want to overload it and have sign pollution, but we do think there's some tweaks that are needed there. The digital NOTAMs, the training has been completed, the agreements are signed. We are just waiting for the airport certification manual. We have to submit some changes there, and once that's approved by FAA, we'll be instituting the digital NOTAM process. We're working with Jacobs on both the MassDOT and FAA grant applications. The FAA came out this week with their schedule of when the grant applications have to be in. Just a reminder, the FAA grants that we're going to be seeking this year will be for the security project and the aircraft rescue and firefighting vehicle. We've also been notified by MassDOT that they'll be doing a crack seal program this year, and their consultant will be out next week to evaluate that. That's Hoyle Tanner. And they're using the statewide pavement condition index program that was created, where it has an interactive map, so it's not going to focus just on taxiways or runways. It's going to take the highest priority items that are needed based on the airport. And I would just also like to advise the commission, I will be taking 2 vacation days, Thursday and Friday this week, and I'll be returning back on island Monday. That's my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. Gasparo?
No.
Ms. Planzer?
No?
Thank you. I gather there are no subcommittee reports? Is that correct? Commissioners' comments? Mr. Gasparo, do you have any comments?
I do not.
Ms. Planzer?
No?
I'd just like to comment, because I think it would be remiss if we didn't, on the article in the newspaper last week. I think the headline was a bit of a headline. It attracted people's attention, but I think when you, our feeling, I believe, is when you got into the story, it was largely accurate, and the quotes were largely accurate.
I think it's safe to say that you can tell who read the article and who read the headline when they provide you with their comments.
So I wish, frankly, that the reporter would come to some of our meetings and spend a little time learning about what's going on and what the issues are. But she was not off the mark, and she was not off the mark in saying we had a deficit, and she was not off the mark in conveying our feelings of some degree of confidence that we can remedy the situation. But nobody said it was going to happen overnight.
They didn't tell me.
I'll tell you, I won't say in what context, but Mr. Rafter came to me about 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, and said, "Is this job covered by the Lemon Law?" Is there any public comment at this time? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn, to go into executive session under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to review executive session minutes of August 28th, September 18th, December 4th, December 11th, February 26th, those are all 2012, February 26th, 2013, April 23rd, 13, May 28th, 13, August 27th, September 10th, September 24th, October 8th, October 22nd, November 12th, December 10th of 2013 for possible release, and 1/14 for review and possible release, not to return to open session. Is there such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Planzer. Mr. Gasparo, do you second it?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Gasparo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. This will be brief. I'll do the minutes of this one. We have to get...
We don't have to know who we are anymore.